What's up, guys? We're got a Ford Ranger, got the gas tank out. I'm going to tell you how I did that. This is the part the guy gave me. It's a repair kit instead of the full nodule. So we got to transfer this fuel pump to right there. You can see there's two wires on it. Rubber hose, new strainer, pump. So we got to transfer all that stuff. This kit came with a new seal for the fuel tank, a little bushing for the bottom of the fuel pump, some hose, some clamps, some new clips for the fuel line, new strainer. That's what he gave me to install, so that's what I'm using. I'd rather do the whole module, but whatever. All right, to get the fuel tank down wasn't that hard, but that's because I have a hoist. You'll probably be on the ground with some jacks. You're gonna want 2 jacks. This tank was totally full, so I spilt a little gas on accident. You know. Here we go. We got our only thing holding this tank up is our 2 fuel straps here. They got bolts in them. Those were 13 millimeter. They came out, didn't need any heat or anything. I wouldn't want to heat up there anyways. They came out without snapping, so that's beautiful. And they go right up to there. So first thing I did was support the tank with some stands, some under hoist stands. You would probably be using a jack on the floor and crawling underneath of it. And we have our fuel inlet. Had a hose clamp on it that went up to here, up to our filler neck. So I supported the tank. Next thing I did is I took that fuel filler hose off. All right, and then used my impact and zipped these 13 millimeters up with the tank supported, and then slowly lowered them down. You want to make sure you don't put strain on your return hose, pressure hose, VAP line, but there's plenty of slack. Then we got our connector right here. It's got 2 little clips on the side and 1 in the middle. That's our connector. It was bolted, not bolted. It had Christmas trees right here which snapped off that keep the harness in. You can just pull that out. So you got lots of slack. Once you drop it down so far, you're gonna want to get these hoses off. There's just a plastic clip for each hose you pull off, and then you twist and pull back. They come off. Vacuum hose came right off, surprisingly. A lot of times you gotta fight with them. So, yeah, we got all that off. Then the 2 clips I'm talking about that are holding the fuel lines on are what they gave us with this repair kit. 2 different clips. Pop those out before you start tugging on the fuel lines. And then we got the cap. The cap screws on to here to hold the module down, so the module goes in between. You put your module in, then you put this over top. To get this to break free, lefty-loosey, put a real blunt screwdriver I had laying around. It's like broken off. Put it on the edge of there and started tapping counterclockwise, and it broke free easily. And that's pretty much to the point we are right now. Pretty simple fuel tank, lots of room. Don't have to drop the drive shaft to get more room. Just got to get that tank lowered so you can disconnect the fuel lines, the evap, and the wiring harness, and start bringing it down. With that filler neck off, of course, as well. That filler neck goes in between the frame and the body. So you got to feed that down as you're lowering slowly. And yeah, so now it's time to get to work transferring this pump over. I'm gonna be taking my power and ground wire off and cutting this clamp off right here. We'll use a new section of hose and use these clamps they gave us, and then popping that new fuel pump in right here with the little bushing on the bottom, and the new strainer clips right on there. So now it's time to get this transferred, this module all set up and ready to put back in the tank. All right, we got our module disassembled. These wires have these pesky little clips on them, so you gotta like kind of press on them from the other side. I cut my hose off with a razor blade after cutting the clamps off with my side snips. I cut it down the middle so I know what length to cut off for my hose there. All right, we got the old pump out here. Yeah, that strainer did not want to come off the bottom there. I had to pry it off with a couple screwdrivers. But now we're ready to set everything up. Let me open this. Alright, so now we're ready to put this guy in there. But before we put it in there, we want our hose length cut off. There we go. So we put this guy in there and line it up. We got to cut our hose length first still. And it stays on there with the new strainer. The new strainer has this ring, and it'll clamp onto there. That's what keeps it in. So let me cut a chunk of hose off. That's that size. Alright, we got her all set up. Strainer. A little cushion. Wires. New hose and clamps. Ready to go. Clean off the spot where your seal's gonna go. I already got the seal set in there, you see it? Alright, you just gotta put it in the right way. Remember, red wire was on the right, black wire was on the left if you're holding it straight up like this. We're gonna pop that in there. Let me put this down for a second. So you kind of gotta like tilt it at an angle to get her in there, and remember which way everything was. I should probably clean all those connections off. The fuel lines were facing towards the inlet hose, fuel filler, and the wiring harness was on the back side here towards the drive shaft. So I can't really do this while I film because the seal keeps moving. I want to sit this right flush on that seal and then put our cap over it and tighten it down. Kind of got to like press down and spin. And it's going to look something like that. Alright, so let's get this tank all put together. The fuel pump module all tightened down here. Alright, just like taking it off, you can only spin it so much putting it back on. So I had to use that blunt screwdriver and hammer to get it tight. You can definitely tell the difference when it gets there, when it gets tight. Don't hammer so hard, you break off your little tabs here. Then you got to rotate your black piece so that however it was before, the lines can connect. Wiring harness, fuel line. And she's ready to be lifted back up in there. All right, let's go. Yeah, with that much fuel in it, it's heavy. I probably should have like siphoned the fuel out, but whatever, it's heavy. I'll get a helper. It'll be a team lift to lift it back on the stands there. Here's our setup here. I didn't have anybody to help me lift that tank up in there. Maybe if I drained all the gas, I'd be able to lift it on the stands. So I'm just using a transmission jack. You can use a floor jack with a big chunk of wood. Just got some bungee cords to keep it from wobbling all over the place. So there we go. It's up in place in between the drive shaft and the frame. I'll come around here. I've got most everything hooked up. See, I still got a gap to work with here. We got our vacuum line hooked back up, our fuel lines hooked back up. They just press right in there, and then you put the clip on them. And you can see that filler hose is pretty dry rotted. That should be replaced. But we got that up by the frame where it's supposed to go. So as we slowly jack this transmission jack or bring the vehicle down, either way, we're gonna feed that hose where it goes in between the frame and the bed. And wiring harness is plugged back in. So now it's time to bring the tank up or the vehicle down, either way, and start lining everything up. Alright, we've lifted that tank up, got it tight up against the body. Not tight, enough to get your fingers in. Make sure you didn't pinch your fuel lines, your vacuum line, your wiring harness. Make sure that doesn't get pinched up there. We got our fuel filler neck lined up here. Sorry, the camera's a little fuzzy for some reason. There we go. Fuel filler neck's lined up and over it. I've got a hose clamp for that that's opened up. So I'll put that around there. That's like the last thing I'll do. So we've, now that we've made sure our wiring harness and lines aren't pinched or getting caught on anything, now we can lift this up and get it nice and tight where it goes against the frame. You can see I'm pretty much on. I could go a little forward. Yep, a little forward. And then get it tight up against the frame. And hook these straps back on. Alright. I got those straps bolted up. We're going to take a look at it. Here we go. Lowered my trans jack once the straps were up there. Straps are looking a bit rusty, but still have some integrity. And our wiring harness comes around and clips into those Christmas trees on this little rail. Our fuel lines are all looking good. That one's got play in it. Can't barely touch the other one. The other one should be good to go too. Got our vacuum line. All right, so everything's looking good. Tank's looking good. We just got to put a hose clamp right there on that filler neck. Make sure she's all the way up in there. There we go. All right. Job well done, eh? That'll do it. Put that hose clamp on. She should run again. New fuel pump.